Everyone. Just wanted to jump in real quick before we get started and say a quick thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. Thank you for supporting this class, and I look forward to creating new videos and new content with your support. So thank you very much. Your name should be appearing in this general area right now. Thanks. I think that's a good idea in general. Just like remind people, so I don't want anyone to miss class and then regret it later just because they, were doing something else and forgot. I was trying on.
I was wondering, was the Discord created for this course, or did it exist previously?
It was created for this course.
Right.
And there are a lot of people in the Discord who don't always come to class, which is, I didn't know that it would work out that way to begin with. But this whole thing has really been pretty experimental, as you might have guessed, just based on the general, not super polished organization and the way things have sort of evolved. But so when I started, I was like, I'm going to do a Coptic, intro to Coptic class. And when I did this at NYU more than a year ago, I had 6 people in my class, but they were from all over NYU. So that class was hosted at ISAW, but I had people who were from different parts of NYU or even connected universities who were taking classes at ISAW. And we scheduled the class around another class that they had in the building so that people could come because it was an actual physical class. And then we had 6 people. So I thought, okay, if I teach basically that same class and I just put it online, put it on Zoom, I figured I'd probably get 10 to 20 people who, like the people in the in-person Coptic class, are the same people who signed up for it and they just come the whole time. This has gone totally differently from that. I think I've had over 100 people sign up for this class in total. And right now we have 7 people. But then when I put the video online, I haven't actually looked, but the videos routinely get 50, 100, 200 views. So I don't even know, YouTube doesn't show you who's actually watching the video, I don't think. I haven't looked. So I don't even know who those people are, but I assume there are a lot of the people who are in the Discord. And I've had a few people tell me that they can't come at the time or they don't want to come at the time or whatever, but they do go and watch the videos. So that's totally unexpected to me. It seems kind of obvious in hindsight maybe, but when I first started doing this, I didn't know that was going to happen. So yeah, so I think I was answering a question that you asked, Rasmus, and I got off track. What did you just ask me?
I just asked if the Discord had been there previous to this course or if it was created in that connection.
Right. Yeah, so it was created in connection with the course, and it was actually, I intended it to be a way for people to discuss the assignments, because what was happening when I first started the course is 100 people signed up and half of them emailed me with questions. And I was like, okay, I cannot possibly answer 50 emails a day about this course, especially because all of them were asking pretty much the same question over and over. I was like, okay, there needs to be some kind of forum where other people who are participating in the class can chime in if they know the answer, if I can't get to it. I was just having the situation where my inbox had 100 unanswered emails in it. And it was just when am I ever going to answer all these questions?
And then the Discord has become so much more than just a place for answering questions. I mean, it's a really great forum for debate. And
yeah.
About anything.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm so excited. I'm so glad that I was wrong about that. And it just kind of goes to show when you set out to create something, you really have no idea what it is that you're going to be making. I've learned that lesson several times in my life, but this is the most profound realization of that I've ever seen. I had no idea that this many people were interested in the subject in the first place. I didn't expect that many people to sign up. And I also sort of just didn't realize that there are so many people who are sort of casually interested in this subject. And that, to me, that's really one of the most exciting things to me. you know, like in like for gamers to call someone a casual is sort of a negative thing. And also in an academic setting, there's kind of this idea that you either have to be like all in, or you're not a scholar of the subject, or you know, you can't participate in like scholarly discussions. And I think that's just totally wrong. I just think that that's not how people want to engage with these kind of subjects. And I think we're really missing out on a lot of good stuff by sort of insisting on that, based really on nothing, based just on, you know, what the uber nerds like me think is normal, right? It's not based on what people want. So that's actually the direction that this is developing. And the reason I'm talking about this so much is because it's something that we've kind of has come up a lot in the Discord discussion and in other places, where I'm talking about like the future of this course and the hieroglyphics, the Egyptian hieroglyphic course that I want to create. Like a lot of that is stemming from like my own learning process from doing this. So I think the plan now is that I want to do an Egyptian hieroglyphic course, probably starting in the summer. And as of today, actually, like I was discussing it with Aurelio earlier, and I realized that it should probably just follow on the Coptic course. So we will finish the exercises in Lambden, and then the following week, or after a week break or whatever, sometime following upon that, we will start doing Late Egyptian. And the Late Egyptian course will have lots of Coptic in it. So it will be like sort of constantly referenced to Coptic at every possible opportunity. And that's just something that I care about a lot. I think part of what I'm trying to do with all of this is I'm trying to create a sort of shortcut where if you're like me and you're interested in these kind of things, I want you to be able to kind of develop the sense of this language that I came to through like years of formal academic study. I want you to be able to access that without having to spend years in grad school, right? So like I want people who are just sort of casually interested in this, and they maybe come to the class on the weekend or watch the videos once a week. I want them to be able to kind of have those moments of intellectual satisfaction where you see like the deep connections throughout this language, and it's a really interesting and really remarkable and unique thing. But as of right now, there's really only one way to access that, and that's through years of academic training, which is all very siloed. So you have to study Middle Egyptian, and then you have to do like a Late Egyptian reading class, and you have to take a totally separate Coptic sequence. And by doing all those things and spending lots of time comparing all the stuff you've learned, you'll form these like historical connections between the words, and you'll have this, deep sense of etymology and how the language developed. I kind of want to just like turn everything 90 degrees and let people see that straight on. So that's the core goal. And then the way that has developed is through the surprising popularity of this course, and then like the development of the Discord server and all those things. So yeah, so that's where we're going. And I had already intended to talk about that when we started our lesson today. So it works out really well that I kind of segued into that by going off on a tangent, as I do. Yeah, so that's where we're going. If you are interested in the Egyptian hieroglyphic course, if you have thoughts about that, definitely put them in the Discord or just email me directly. I'm definitely sort of collecting ideas. I still don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I think to a large extent, it's going to be this, I always use the metaphor of the transcontinental railroad, where they're like literally putting the railroad ties down and laying the track as the first train is coming along. It's definitely going to be an actively developing thing, for two reasons. One, because I just don't have the time to like set aside a big block of time and create an entire course of study materials when there's not a textbook for the subject already. That takes that could take months of exclusive, devoted attention. And the other reason is from the lessons learned with this Coptic class, right? Like the way the Discord developed. I thought it was going to be something totally different than it is. I think with this Egyptian hieroglyphic course, I don't know what it's going to be yet. And that's a good thing, because part of what we're doing here is figuring out what people want to get out of the subject and finding a way to reach people. So it should be flexible and it should develop as it goes. So yeah, we'll see. Does anyone have any questions about Egyptian hieroglyphic course?
Is there a textbook for late Egyptian?
There are a few books about late Egyptian. The most popular are Junge's Late Egyptian. There's an English translation that was originally published in German. There's also The Language of Ramses. I think that's also an English translation of a book that was originally published in French. And then there is Czerny and Groll, which is far and away, in my opinion anyway, the gold standard for late Egyptian grammar. And that's actually the book that I will be basing most of my material on. That book is pretty hard to acquire. In fact, I'm going to have to figure out how to acquire it because my copy is in a storage unit in Houston, Texas. But I might have a PDF. There's not going to be, maybe I'm answering the wrong question. So there aren't really great textbooks for late Egyptian. The way most Egyptologists learn late Egyptian is they take a sequence of Middle Egyptian courses, and then they take like one late Egyptian reading course after that. So for example, in my case, I took a couple courses, but the one I remember best was Jim Allen's Tomb Robbery Papyri course, where I and another student named Jen Thumb, she's a pretty cool lady. She works for Harvard Art Museum now, and she does like really cool public outreach stuff. And we're now writing a book together about the satire on the trades. We're writing a book aimed at a middle grade audience, and our co-author, so there's three of us, our co-author is I think he's 13 now. He's a young man who's also studying Egyptian. So at a very young age. So she and I are creating this book about like daily life in ancient Egypt that's built on this text called the Satire on the Trades, which is a late Egyptian text. Well, it's not late Egyptian actually. It's more Middle Egyptian, but it was written later. About daily life, and I'm definitely going to use some of the material from that in this course. But she and I took the Tomb Robbery Papyri course, where we just like took the Tomb Robbery Papyri and we just read them. Like we just read like 3 pages of Tomb Robbery Papyri every single day, and like discussed them and analyzed the grammar. And that's the only class I had on late Egyptian. No, I had another one. I think I had another reading class. But late Egyptian is normally not its own class. So the reason that I'm doing it as its own class here is that there's this huge divide in the history of Egyptian language. So there's what Alan calls Egyptian 1, which is Middle Egyptian and Old Egyptian. And then there's Egyptian 2, which is everything from late Egyptian to Coptic. So starting in the Amarna period during the reign of Akhenaten, the writing of Egyptian was radically reformed. So I think the Great Hymn to the Aten is really the first late Egyptian text, although we do have some late Egyptianisms in earlier, like Middle Kingdom and Second Intermediate Period texts. So basically what happened is, there's this radical king, he's kind of a nut. He inherited a very strong royal government from his father. But nobody really knows for sure what happened, but what seems to have happened is that he tried to consolidate power in his government by diminishing the worship of Amun at Thebes, and thereby diminishing the power of the Amun priesthood at Thebes, which was kind of a second government in Egypt at the time. So he implements all of these reforms. He uses this new art style that's more, you could say more realistic, although that's a simplification, but it's just different. and it has some elements of realism that are kind of one of the main things that differentiates it. And he also institutes a totally new writing of the language. So we see these royal texts that are written in the spoken language of the time. And because Middle Egyptian was so conservative and had preserved this archaic written language for so long, when this happens, the language appears to go through this massive seismic shift where the grammar is structured totally differently. Even the most basic grammatical constructions, like you may have heard of the Sejimef, this basic verb form, acquires kind of a new use. The articles come in, so like all the definite and indefinite articles that you see in Coptic, they really first appear in late Egyptian. Really, just about everything that we would analyze etymologically in Coptic, grammatical constructions, lexicon, vowel sounds and the vowel shifts between the different dialects that you can observe, all of those things you can trace back to late Egyptian, but you can't go back to Middle Egyptian. There's this gulf between them because the way the language was reformed created this very sudden shift in the way things were written. So from our perspective, obviously we've been doing lots of Coptic, and then we want to connect that to some older stage of the language. It makes sense to go to late Egyptian because that's the one where you can actually like put a late Egyptian text next to the same sentence in Coptic, and you can tell that they are the same sentence if you know how to read both scripts. They will be structured sometimes identically, always quite similarly. If you take that exact same sentence in Middle Egyptian, you have to know both languages to figure out how they're related to one another. They're going to be quite different. And then the grammatical constructions are going to be totally different. So yeah, that's the reason for it. So that's a very long answer to your question, but it's also things that I would want to say anyway about like the history of Egyptian language and why we're doing things the way we're doing them. I've had this conversation with other Egyptologists who specialize in language over the past 10 years or so. Just about everyone who knows the subject really well thinks that in a perfect world, we would start teaching Egyptian by teaching Coptic. Because if you know Coptic, you can sort of mentally comprehend the language as a spoken language, then you can map that onto the extremely idiosyncratic hieroglyphic writing system, and you can kind of gain, like, you can get on top of things that way. The reason we don't do that is largely practical. The reason we don't do that is because, well, it's because every like niche academic field is in a sense a pyramid scheme. I always joke that Egyptology is a pyramid scheme. Like we have to attract students who want to study this because their tuition payments pay for the people who teach this subject, right? There's a very practical side of this that's really unavoidable. The economics are quite simple. And nobody knows what the hell Coptic is, so you can't attract anyone to the field if you say you have to start with Coptic. If you tell everyone who wants to learn the like cool hieroglyphs, like, oh, you have to start by reading this totally other thing that you've never heard of before, no one would ever take the classes, and then every Egyptology department would just kind of die on the vine because it would have no, no source of renewed interest. But with this class, because I'm putting it online for free and just asking people to support me out of the goodness of their hearts, I can do whatever I want. And that's kind of why I'm doing it, to be honest. You never get to do what you want when teaching college classes. Even tenured professors don't get to do what they want, contrary to popular belief. But in this, I can do whatever the hell I want. And I want to teach late Egyptian and connect it to Coptic. So that's what we're going to do. I hope that's a good answer. It's a long answer, but yeah, that's, yeah.
So
now you know
Champollion did. Champollion, right? The first thing he did was learn Coptic when he wanted to tackle hieroglyphs. So
yeah, he already knew Coptic when he started, and that's one of the genius of Champollion is the fact that he had learned Coptic before anyone knew that it was the same as hieroglyphic Egyptian. No one knew that they were the same language. So he just learned this obscure liturgical language from a country, you know, thousands of miles away, just because he was just such a hardcore nerd. And you cannot, like, you can't not be at least a little bit impressed. That's like nerddom on a new level. We can't ask that of everyone though. Like, and I didn't do that. I started learning hieroglyphs because I thought the hieroglyphs looked cool, right? Like, there's no wrong way to come to a subject. Whatever grabs your interest, like, your interests are always valid. But the reason that we should start by teaching Coptic is because it sets people up for success, and it gives you this view of the language that kind of ties all the different pieces together. I cannot say ties together without thinking of the rug from the Big Lebowski, but Coptic is really the rug that ties the room together. You cannot understand Egyptian language deeply and in a satisfying way without studying Coptic. But most Egyptologists never study Coptic. If you watch a documentary where they have an Egyptologist that they're interviewing speaking about an ancient Egyptian site of some sort, you would be wise to bet that they have never studied Coptic. Most Egyptologists never study Coptic. So it really is a niche subject, even within the niche subject of Egyptology. But it helps so much.
Probably like me, I'm coming from interest in, you know, Hermeticism and Gnosticism. So it's people like that probably are more likely to learn Coptic than
definitely.
Egyptologists. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
By the way, side note, to Dante's point a moment ago about Champollion, the grammar of Champollion is available online on archive.org. And if you go through it, you can see that every Egyptian sentence is glossed in Coptic and in French, which is fascinating. So you can really see they did exactly what Christian was just describing, namely use Coptic as a vehicle to understand the Egyptian. It's an interesting read. He got a few things wrong, but he got so much right, which is also amazing.
He definitely got a few things wrong, but the amount of things, it's very easy to forget how many things he figured out that literally no one in the world knew at the time. And the ratio of things that he got right to things that he got wrong is extraordinarily high. And it's just fascinating stuff. Like, looking back through his work is incredibly interesting, because you can actually see, if you know Coptic and you've studied hieroglyphic Egyptian and then you look at Champollion's work, you can see that the things he was finding seem incredibly obvious once you put them together. But he was the first one to put them together. So he had basically just like found this amazing puzzle scattered into pieces and just started putting the pieces together. And eventually everything just clicked. And he was obviously right. You know, he had no doubt that he was right. And even the things he gets wrong are like relatively minor details compared to the number of things that have, you know, all fit together the whole way. It's like very consistent, and also things that are being really relearned for the first time with his work. So super cool stuff. Highly recommend looking at that. And then, you know, again, just kind of returning to the point that started all of this, the goal of the Hieroglyphic Egyptian course is going to be to create a situation where you don't have to go read a book from the 19th century to see some of these things. You can kind of just, you can just step right in and see the cool stuff first. And then if you love it, and if it, you know, gets under your skin, and you catch the bug, as people say, with skiing and other addictive hobbies, then you will go and you know, you'll do the backcountry stuff. I don't know. The skiing metaphor is going to fall apart pretty quick, but that's the idea anyway, is to start people on the fun, cool stuff. And because I can do whatever I want, I can take a totally different approach to doing that and just see how it works out. So yeah, if you do have any questions about that or any thoughts about it, please put them in Discord or email me, or comment on this video if you're watching this video. And I will definitely take your suggestions into account because, like I said from the very beginning, this thing is going to be a adaptive project where I'm responding to the things that people tell me they want. So yeah, I'm interested to know. Okay, so that was half of our class time that I spent talking about that. But I think it needs to be talked about. That's definitely the next big step in this project. I have 8 people ready to do some Coptic translation, and I have, let's see, oh, the math on this is just freaking impossible. There's like a fence post problem in here. It looks like 30. I don't know. Anybody who's good at fence post problems want to tell me if that's correct? I think it's 30. And we have 8 people. So everyone gets 3.75 questions. I'm gonna do it in groups of 4s, starting with GT. GT, do you want to do 4 of these?
I think skip me for now, or maybe move back in line. I need to review a bit.
Okay, would you like to, I can put you at the end of the queue and have you come back in a little bit if you want to do that.
Sure, that works.
Okay. Randy, do you want to do 4?
Sure. You said 4, right?
That's right.
I don't see. Do you mean start at number 6 or number 4? Because
Yeah, sorry. Start at number. Wait, where are we? Yeah, start at number 6, and it will be 6 through 9. So
I see. Okay.
The first one.
Okay. Ntaftinau sharoten etrashaje nameten. And that would be, it was with you that he sent me to speak with.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so you created a cleft sentence. Why did you create a cleft sentence?
I saw that nta at the very start, and I know Lambden said that, I think he said that it can be like en, or it could just be the superlinear stroke n, but that clued me off that it might be a cleft sentence. And then my eyes just went all the way to the end and looked for, something like edvis something, or, nematen, or some kind of like pronominal adverbial type reason thing. And so that's what I concluded.
I think that's a good instinct, and those cleft sentences will really help you see the intended meaning of these second tenses. I would probably choose this as my adverbial clause to make predicate of the cleft sentence. I guess it is the predicate. It is in order that I speak with y'all, that he sent me to y'all.
That second word from the end, the etrashaje, is that a inflected infinitive, or is that causative? Or I can't remember the terminology.
This is the causative infinitive, I believe. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong about that, because I'm also not so great at remembering all the terminology. It's so arbitrary. But so this is, I'm pretty sure it's the causative because that's how it's constructed. So it's that I speak, trashaje, and then you can put a preposition on that. So toward that I speak with y'all. Obviously that's terrible English, but just trying to capture the sense of the Coptic. This whole thing, in order that I speak with y'all, that actually is a prepositional phrase, because this is nominal, right? And that's what the causative infinitive does. That's why the name is so misleading, because the causative infinitive makes it sound like it's going to be causative and that's something important, but what's really important is the infinitive part. I think it might also be called the inflected infinitive. No, that's a different thing. That's the toddy one. Anyway, but what's happening here is that all of this verb phrase is acting as the object of the preposition e. So in order that I speak with you, he sent me to you, right? I think that's a good translation. I think your translation is also good. So with the second tense, you don't necessarily know what it is that's being emphasized. It could be really any adverbial clause, so any of these prepositional phrases, or it could also just be the predicate itself in a slightly confusing way. The second tense can be used to express surprise. So you can say, like, if the sentence ended here, we could say, like, he sent me. It would be just like, what's interesting about this is that he sent me. So that's called the abusive form of the second tense, according to Polotskian terminology, although it is very, very common. So yeah, all of that. Okay, let's go on to number 7, I think.
Okay. Beje Jesusna je diwashim. And that would be Jesus said to him, I want it.
Yes. Or I want him, you know.
Oh, right.
Not clear, although it probably does refer to some pronominal it, like bread, or, you know, could be anything. It could be like a non and inanimate object. But it could also be like, I want him. I don't know. I'm not going to assume. Number 8.
As shopide pempetra now enai afactive of starter. It happened that while he was looking at these things,
Yeah, good. Nice.
I know that always throws me off because I see the e and then the nai, and I'm like, wait, which nai is this?
It throws everybody off for a really long time. That's definitely, a lot of things in Coptic get easier just with reading practice. And that's one of those things where, like, if you've read enough Coptic, you don't even think about the other things it could be, but nai is super confusing because it can mean so many different things. Then what did he do?
So it happened that, let's see, it happened that while he saw these things, he bowed and he became troubled.
Yeah, storter is to become troubled is correct. It's really to be, it's like to be chaotic in some way. That's the broad meaning of this. But it generally means like to be surprised or something. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be that there's really anything going on. It can just be like an internal thing. Like, my world was perfectly orderly, and then I saw something that I wasn't expecting, and now my comprehension of the world has become uncertain. So yeah, good job on 8. Let's do 9.
Minchom emai etrashimshete. It is impossible for me to serve you.
Yes. Do you want to try to do that a bit more literally? Like word for word, the Coptic?
There is no power to me that I serve you.
Yeah. So little bit of a weird sentence, especially when you translate it literally. But this is the equivalent. So your translation was good. I would say the most literal translation was the one that you just did. And then the most fluid translation in the natural way of expressing exactly the same ideas in English would be, I can't serve you. So yeah, it's a way of expressing ability. Anyway, okay. Good job, Randy. I'll just throw a plug in here. If you haven't already seen my like 4,000 announcements, Randy did audio versions of, wait, that is you, right? I'm talking to the right person.
That's me.
Okay, just making sure. I can't see your last name, so I don't know. Like, make sure it's the right Randy before I say it. So Randy created audio versions of all of these sentences for Anki, and I put them on Gumroad. They're available for free if you want. And I put a suggested donation on there so that I can send Randy the proceeds from this. And 2 people have already purchased them. Oh, 3 people. Yeah. So go download them. The minimum price is $0, so you can absolutely go download them for free. But if you want to kick back a little bit to Randy for the time he spent doing that, please do that as well. Okay. Thanks, Randy. Pat, do you want to do the next 4?
I'll have to skip these 4.
Okay. Do you want to come back in later?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Aurelio, do you want to take these 4? He was just here. Where'd he go? There he is. He's just silent.
He's muted.
I see panic in his eyes. I think there's some kind of technical
about now?
difficulties happening. There we go. Okay, we got you.
I
can see
click
that.
and click
I can
and
see the
nothing
look
happens
of
here.
like nothing's happening when I push the
Right,
button.
exactly. You got it. All right, let's try it. So number 10. Rapes erok be eterexilsel temau impshere. It is proper for us that
Nope.
no, not for us, for you. Sorry, for you. Singular.
Hapes. For you.
Hapes is not proper. Okay.
Proper is
Hapes,
esche. This is
right.
hapes.
So hapes, then it's wait. It's not possible either. What is it?
It is necessary.
Necessary. It's necessary. It's necessary for you that you console the mother of the child.
Good. Yeah. These definitely click better after a little bit of practice. It's all of these same like impersonal constructions where men chomemoi means I can't. Hapes erok means you must, right? Like if we're translating them into natural English, and then esche is like you should. So yeah, we'll see more of those.
Okay. Let's see then. Number 11. Nim pentafti naf entexusia etrefire enechwewe. So who gave him the power or the authority to do these things?
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's good. I don't have any questions actually.
All right, then let's go
All
to
right.
number 12. Enterefsotem in ashaje, afstotter, af mukef. Okay. Enterefsotem in ashaje. After or when he heard my words, that's a my in there with an a.
Yeah, good.
Afstotter, like he was disturbed, he was startled, something of that nature. Af mukef. He thought about it. He pondered about it. I'm trying to think what to do with the if at the end, because mekmuk
What
is
do you
something
think?
like.
If you were to describe it in grammatical terms, what is the F?
I'm wondering if it refers to basically the first F. In other words, it's just reflexive. He was pondering to himself, sort of, or whether it's like ponder about something.
I think it's reflexive. I don't know that with absolute certainty, but that's my gut feeling, and my gut feelings on Coptic tend to be pretty good. I mean, that's why you spend a long time studying things, is that so you can kind of trust your instincts when you're not sure. I'm pretty sure it's reflexive. Mokmek is like, it's such a great word because it's one of these words that is, it has this quality that I refer to as iconicity, where like the sounds of the words match the meaning of the word in some very vague impressionistic sense. Like mokmek is like, it sounds like gears turning or something, like your clockwork brain is working on something. So yeah, something that I feel that the German language often lacks is iconicity. Things probably not true for the native speakers in this room, but for me, I learn new words and I'm like, that sounds like it means something totally different than that. But yeah, anyway, just whining. I'm just whining about having to learn another language.
Understood. Let me do 13. Divorce etreksho nemai in shomentenevod. I wish that you stay with me for 3 months.
Very good. Yeah. I wish that you stay with me for 3 months. Is that how you would tell like a special friend that you want to spend the summer with you? Is that how you would phrase it? I wish that you stay with me for 3 months?
Oi, you mean in English or in Coptic?
In English, yeah, in English.
I wish that you. No, that sounds a little bit stilted, doesn't it? I wish that you stay with me for 3 months. I want you to stay with me for 3 months. Would be another.
Exactly. Yes, that's what I was going for. And your translation is correct in both cases. But what I want to draw out is to make sure that we're connecting the Coptic sentences to things that people would actually say, like to their friends and family in a normal everyday setting, because that is very much the case. These are not. This is not like a highfalutin literary phrase. This is, I want you to stay with me for 3 months. It is a very everyday sort of phrase. And the same in number 14, which we'll go to. Thanks, Aurelio, for your translations. Dante, do you want to do 14 through 17?
Sheshe etreu sotem ensa en shachean choes. So it is appropriate that they obey the words of their Lord.
Yeah, exactly. That they obey is a good translation of this, literally sotem en sa.
Like listen, following them or something, like listen, hearing behind them.
Yeah, exactly. It's an idiom. It's a Coptic idiom.
Yeah.
That is literally listen behind, but it means to obey. And then the eshe, I think you did it right. Like it is proper that they listen. But again, if you were just saying this to a friend, what would you say?
They should listen. Or they ought to or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they might oughta listen. They might oughta obey their Lord, where that last word just doesn't fit with the first words in that sentence. What was I going to say about this? Oh yeah, there's as you probably have realized, there is no right answer. If you translate it fluidly, I will tell you to translate it literally and vice versa. So there you go.
Uenstrom emon etrem sel solef. So it is possible for us that we console him. So we can console him.
Yeah, exactly. Great job. And you headed me off on my
right.
my attempts to.
It's easier to just give both, right? En taten he e tigrafe en aston.
Tegrafe.
Tegra. I thought you said epsilon iota was always e.
I did. I probably said a lot more than that because I tend to be very verbose. But this is the most common exception you'll ever see. In pei, te, ne, they are actually separate sounds.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so where did you all find this old book, this old writing?
Yeah. That could even be spell, since you're interested in like Hermeticism and things.
Grafe.
Yeah, that could mean spell.
Yeah.
And there's quite a bit of Coptic magic. It's a really interesting subject. There's a great blog about it. I think it's called Coptic Magic. Let me see real quick. It should just come up. Coptic Magic blog. Let's just see what I find. Yeah, Coptic Magical Papyri. And they have a podcast too, and it's fantastic. Oh, and now they're working with Coptic Scriptorium, which is another really cool project. So yeah, good to know about if you're interested in that sort of thing, which I certainly am. Really interesting topic. Do you want to do 17?
En hapesan etren po epteme empou. So it is not necessary that we reach the village today.
Good. Yeah.
We don't need to get to the village today or something.
Yeah. Great job. All right. Thanks, Dante. Rasmus, do you want to take the next four, starting with 18?
Yeah. 18 was quite difficult to figure out, but I think I got it. I needed to insert a space after the two first letters. I think Alan Lambton has a space there as well.
So, sorry. It's a typo I didn't catch.
But anyway, it's u petunaaf hem Ptereusotem tefsme, which means something along the lines of what is it they will do when they hear his voice?
Yeah, very good. Excellent translation. What is that which they will do it in their hearing toward his voice?
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't translate very nicely, but what are they going to do when they hear his voice?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah. 19 is atevsvo poneron sterter parkipiskopos emate. His evil instruction concerned the archbishop exceedingly.
Yeah, nice. I'm going to ask you one question. Why does this word end in on?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, it should be poneros because normally they just take the Greek nominative.
Except when they don't. And when don't they?
I remember that Lambden did write about it some lessons back, but I don't remember what he wrote. Sorry.
That's okay. That's why we go back over it. So the Greek adjectives have 3 possible genders. They have masculine, feminine, and neuter. But Coptic borrows the masculine and the neuter, and it uses the masculine for all animate things, including like human women. It will use the masculine adjective, the Greek masculine adjective, to refer to them. And then it uses the neuter for all inanimate things. So in this case, it's his teaching, and teaching is obviously inanimate, so it uses the neuter adjective. That's generally the case. So Coptic borrowed Greek adjectives and then created this new animate, inanimate divide from the 3-part divide that you find in Greek, although it really is 2-part divides, right? The neuter is, it's more complicated than that. So they just collapsed it onto one axis, and they just have animate and inanimate. And then they, depending on the level of Greek competence and like register of the Coptic writer, they may use Greek feminine adjectives to refer to human women. But for the most part, the division is os, or whatever. The masculine Greek adjective is for humans, and on is for things. And then that extends to the perpetual confusion about animals. Are they animate or inanimate? Even English has this trouble. Like you don't refer to someone's pet as it, you refer to it as him or her. That confusion definitely shows up in Coptic sometimes too. Anyway.
That makes sense. 20 is piu nkoi enjoy a hon e demoro, which is 4 small boats came into the harbor.
Not 4.
Oh, 5. Sorry, 5. I mixed up the numbers. Yeah, 5.
The only way to get the numbers is to say them to yourself in order. And I know that sounds so silly because you probably haven't done that since you were in elementary school. But at least for me anyway, the only way I can get numbers to click into in a foreign language is to say them back to myself in their proper sequence. I don't know what that does in the brain, where it makes them like actually get processed as numbers instead of just arbitrary words. But I have to do that. So it goes y, snau, shomt, fto, diu, se, sash, or shash, depending on dialect, shmoon, cease, and then mate, and then it gets complicated from there. But you kind of do need to say them to yourself like that. So that's a little piece of advice that I'll throw in. Put the numbers in order and say them to yourself, and that will help you learn them. Just like you did when you were a kid. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but I actually do distinctly remember this for whatever reason. I remember my mom teaching me the numbers when I was like 3 years old, teaching me how to count. And you all did that at some point, probably with your parents, because you normally learn it before you even go to school. but you should go ahead and do that. Part of learning a foreign language is regressing into childhood and growing up again very quickly. And I experience this now every day when I go out into the world. I have to try to communicate with someone in German, and I sound like a toddler. I sound worse. There's kids playing outside where we live, and they're like talking to each other in German. I'm like, oh my God, their German is so much better than mine. It's really humbling. Anyway, 21.
Yes. She roi attraction, which I've translated as it is proper for me that I stay with you, or I should stay with you.
Yeah, good. And you?
And the you is feminine. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Just double checking on that. This is, nema plus pronominal suffix, and the na type pre-pronominal prepositions get in the second person feminine.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a general thing that you can observe. Okay. Great job, Rasmus. Mustafa,
Yeah,
do you want to do 22 through 25?
yeah, of course. Tenasep sopef etreftenov eron. You will beseech. You will beseech him. Beseech. When he sent it to us.
Yeah, it's not you though. 10. Again, this is so super confusing, but the T is actually part of the base that the pronoun sits on. So the only pronoun is the N.
Okay, we will beseech.
Mm-hmm.
Beseech him when he sent him to us.
Yeah. I wouldn't say then. We will beseech him to send him to us. Again, this is one of these cases where the Coptic just does not map onto English in any obvious way, but we will beseech him toward his sending him to us. Super confusing.
Okay.
But yeah, good.
Menschom esolsel and napistos. I think the napistos first N is something false, I think.
No, it's the direct object marker. So it's in, or just napistos. I really think this shouldn't have the superlinear stroke on it, but
yeah,
whatever, maybe it's there. So this is, do you know apistos? The meaning?
apistos, it is a negation with also Greek word.
Yeah.
Means pistos, as I know, belief, faith.
Yeah. So this is like the faithless.
Yeah, apistos meaning not faithful, not faithful, not something plus.
And then this is the direct object marker. So solsel, this is the absolute form of the verb. So it needs to be attached to the direct object with the N. So it's solsel.
As I remember, solsel, console.
Yeah, console.
It is not possible to console my belief.
Apistos is apistos is the faithless people, the people who don't have faith.
Okay.
The unbelievers.
Unbelievers, yeah. There is not possible to console unbelievers.
Yeah, good. Okay. Wait, where's the dot? There we go.
As shope hem petrefeime neu mokmek Afarhi epitima now. Astyope, it happened while or as he know to their thinking
Yeah, good.
Afarhi, he started to rebuke them.
Good. Yeah. It happened in his knowing their thinking, he began to rebuke them. So kind of like it happened that when he knew what they were thinking, he started to rebuke them. Although rebuke is definitely not a common word in English. I think we say criticize. Criticize is probably a better translation. It's not exact, but really nobody says rebuke. It's really not a common word in English. Anyway, 25.
Me, okay.
Yeah, I think it's still your turn.
Yeah. Pejai nav je entek odikaios. Pejai. He said, you are righteous. You are a righteous one.
Not he said. I think you're combining the naf and the pejai. So pejai is I said, and then naf to him.
I said to him, and quotation,
Mhm.
you are a righteous one.
Yeah, I said to him, you are righteous. Yeah, fun. Okay, thanks, Mustafa. Great job with those. GT, are you ready now?
Sure.
Okay.
Right, so 26. I was a bit confused about this one. So it's Sinach Nuf Etva Tejusia Etnatas now. So
Yeah.
really confused about the first part of this, the Sinach Nuf.
So it is a little confusing because it actually contains something that we haven't really talked about yet. I think we're going to learn about it later in Lambda, but it contains a T causative. But you don't need to worry about that for now. You can just think of it as ask or inquire. So they asked him, or I'm sorry, they will ask him because it's Senna Januf. They will ask him. And then this word is texusia. It means the exousia.
Yeah,
which means like
the authority.
Yeah.
So they asked him about the authority that he gave to them.
Yes, good. And notice this etef na da'as. The S refers back to exousia, right? Because it's feminine.
Yeah.
And both of these verbs are first futures. So they will ask him.
Oh, they will ask him about the authority that he will give to them.
Yeah, good. And notice we have the F in here because the exousia is the object of the relative clause. So we need to get the F in here. They asked him about the authority that he will give it to them. So the subject is not the antecedent of the relative clause. So we have a pronoun. Yep. Just making a note of that because we talked about it before.
Yep. Then
anyway.
27, Meshte etrei ehun pelpe in taihe. It is fitting that they came up to the temple in this manner.
Into the temple.
Oh, into the temple. Yeah.
Yeah, ehune. Yeah. It is fitting that they came into the temple in this manner. I think it's, so this is not past tense. This is the causative or inflected infinitive, which apparently Lambden calls the inflected parentheses causative infinitive. So yeah, whatever you want to call it. In this case, it kind of has a future sense. So they should come into the temple in this manner, or it is fitting that they come, like with the that they should come to the temple.
Yep.
In this manner. Yeah.
Okay. And then 28. Timoste mok un nexache imponid. I hate you and your evil words.
Yes. Oh, so dramatic. Oh my gosh. It's like soap opera line.
So, and then 29, Ochne uhlo je ashte dispistis. So it's, I asked the old man, like, and then it's something about belief, but I'm or faithfulness. I'm getting confused, or like if he is faithful.
So pistis is faith as like a concept, right?
Okay.
And so ashtet pistis is like, what is faith?
Oh,
And it's like, it's the way you would ask, like, what is the meaning of this word? And also like, you know, in a more philosophical sense, like what does this concept mean? And then in this part, I just want to double check some things on the translation.
Is
So we have
this-
aljne.
mhm.
Is this pistis a different form of the pistos or something like that?
Yeah, pistos is in Greek is an adjective. So it's a faithful person, someone who has faith.
Okay.
Pistis is with an I is a noun, and it refers to belief, like as a concept. And Coptic does borrow those things correctly. Like it keeps Greek nouns and adjectives separate, even though in Coptic they are all nouns, but they're nouns with different meanings, right? In Coptic, pistis is faith, the concept, and pistos is a person. It's a person who has faith. So they do refer to different things semantically, but in Greek, their distinction is morphological. Like one is an abstract noun, the other is formally an adjective. Oh, and it's, sorry, GT, I was gonna ask you to just recap the translation of these things.
Yep. They asked the old man, "What is faith?"
Not the old man.
Oh,
Ooh,
an
hello.
old man.
An old man. Yeah. Okay, got it. That's the thing I wanted to, you know, it's like I hope I'm not being too obnoxious by being so pedantic about those little things, but really it's, you know, like I always say, your translation was like 99% correct. And then those little, you know, sanding off the rough edges is just something that you will do constantly. And actually, if you come to the reading classes or, you know, go to the more advanced classes, you'll hear me make mistakes like that all the time too. I'll translate something with a totally different pronoun without realizing it. And then one of the helpful students will point out to me that I've translated it totally incorrectly. So yeah, just part of it. Pat, are you ready to do 4 of these?
Yeah. So
All
number
right.
30, this one's a bit of a long one. Ashope de menesa tref bokebor awarki en shajet be emain en tafau en teumete. So it happened that after he went away, they began to speak about the miracles which he didn't, like in the middle, like in their midst.
Yes, very good. And I mean, that's really, I have nothing to criticize in that translation. It was so good. So it happened after they went away, and then it's the causative infinitive. After they're going away, they began to speak about the miracles or the signs. Interestingly, Mayin comes from the word menu in Middle Egyptian. So if you studied Middle Egyptian, it's this word that you see carved into stone all the time that is like, Ramses created many monuments. It's that word menu, like monuments, but then it gradually comes to mean like marvelous things or like great works. And then it comes to mean signs or miracles. So they spoke about the miracles or the signs, which he made them in their midst. And this, just like you translated it, like this literally turns into perfect English, in their midst. Exactly the same in Coptic. That's always fun when that happens. So yeah, good translation.
The 31, Empermeste lao en Rome, and don't hate any man.
Yep, good. Imper, the negative
That's-
imperative prefix. Yeah, good.
Then
Okay.
32, I se sopef etrefu sheb nai. I prayed for him to respond to me.
I think it's just I asked him.
Yeah,
Really?
because it said like beseech and treat
Yeah.
was the verb. I had no idea what beseech was.
It's
But
another one of these. It's like earlier we had the example of rebuke, which is the translation that Lambden gives you, and I said like, but nobody uses that in English. Same thing with beseech. It's a word that every native English speaker will probably know, but it's not one that we would ever use in a conversation. It's one of these kind of literary words. In conversation, we use the word ask, and in casual spoken English, ask can mean request or it can mean ask a question. So it's just ambiguous. But because they are two different verbs in Coptic, Lambden's translation of these words is distinct. So I beseeched him that he answer me. Yeah, however you want to do that. And then in reality, it would just be, I asked him to answer me. Woshev, interestingly enough, is related to a word that probably everyone here knows. It's Weshev is the root that means to answer, and it's in the word ushabti or shawabti, like those little faience figurines that you see in museum collections all the time. Answerer, one who answers. Yeah. Okay, and
So-
last sentence.
33. Empefco, Emo, Gelau, and Shaja. He did not allow them to say anything.
Yeah, good. Very good translation too. He did not leave them, literally. He did not let them to say any word. Okay, great job, Pat. I'm just gonna do the last two real quick because we're kind of low on time and we need to look at the lesson too. So 34, Awoshabnaf, Enchip Son Snell, Je Entan Now Arof Hitehye. So they answered him, the two brothers, saying, we saw him on the road, or if you want to make this into a cleft sentence because there's a second tense here, it was on the road that we saw him, or it was him that we saw on the road. Not clear which one you're supposed to emphasize, but probably on the road. It was on the road that we saw him. Yeah, maybe it's the guy that the Samaritan rescued and the two brothers were just left him there. I don't know. Okay, and 35. Ten nuf et bepefdo in jome inte evangelion. So we will ask him about the 4 books of the gospel. So which you all know what those are: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay, good. And then lesson 21, I'll go through kind of quickly. Again, like I always say, the going over the lessons is really pretty quick. I'm not going to read it all to you. And it's really practicing the sentences where these things get properly solidified in memory. But the imperfect is definitely something you need to learn about. It is essentially the basic form of the verb, kind of like the first present. It's actually the circumstantial, which we haven't learned yet, but it is this basic verb form with the standard pronouns that you know from elsewhere, with ne stuck onto the front. So if I were to break this apart, oh no, I locked the screen. Okay, if I were to break this apart, I would probably say that this is ne plus e plus, some kind of suffix pronoun plus infinitive. So neikot is I was building. This ne is what's called a converter, and we'll see a few more of these. Basically, it's a Coptic particle, a Coptic morpheme, kind of just a generic component of the language that you can put onto a verbal phrase, and it will just shift something into the background context, which is why it's called the imperfect. This is one of my biggest beefs with Leighton's Coptic lesson, Coptic in 20 lessons, and Leighton's Coptic grammar, is that he renames this the preterite. And there is an argument in Coptic in 20 lessons where he explains why he has renamed it the preterite, in which he defines the imperfect correctly and describes the verb form correctly, and then somehow decides that the name shouldn't apply to the thing even though they clearly both refer to the same thing. I've read it 10 times and I still don't understand. If I find a page, we can talk about it in the Discord later. If I find it, I'll show it to you and I'll ask if anybody can explain to me what his argument is, because it seems very clear to me that he is correctly understanding what imperfect means. Generally, it refers to something that is, you know, kind of the immediate past and immediate context. And he correctly understands that the Coptic converter makes it do this thing and then somehow decides that the term doesn't apply. I don't know, it makes no sense. Lambden and just about everybody else calls it the imperfect because that's what it is objectively. And it's just this ne thing, or as you can see before, a noun, nere, which is, you know, pretty typical. Coptic likes to put this re on any sort of converter or whatever verbal prefix when it's before a noun. But it is just this thing that shifts everything slightly into the past and makes it sort of part of the background. So the way I explain the meaning of an imperfect generally is that it's like a stage with a play on it. The normal verbs are kind of like the action, and the imperfect is like the background. So putting ne onto a verb basically says this is part of the background. So for instance, ne kot, I was building the house and it started to rain, right? I was building the house is the contextualizing information that sets the stage, and then it started to rain is the actual action that is generally the thing worth talking about. So the imperfect often refers to things that are known or at least unsurprising. And then the main verb refers to what actually happened, the point that I'm trying to get to. And then this little detail, the imperfect is optionally, but often followed by an untranslatable pe. So ne kot pe, when I was building, or nek kot pe, when you were building. That pe can't be translated. I honestly do not understand why it's in there. I've never figured it out. So if you figure it out, please tell me, because I'm curious. And just a few examples. Prome et nefmoche hidehye, the man who was walking on the road. Or prome enefmoche hidehye, this is actually a different thing that we haven't really learned about, but oh well. Pei eten neokot imof, the house which they were building it, and pei neokot imof, the house which they were building it. These are not great examples. There's more going on there, but we don't have time to talk about it now, and it's something we're going to learn about later. Okay, and then another thing, forget about the imperfect for now. Totally different thing. They're in the same chapter. Because they do correlate, like they do show up in the same context, but they're actually totally separate things grammatically. The qualitative. So you might have noticed when you see Coptic verbs in a dictionary, you'll get 4 forms normally. Let me see if I can think of a verb and give you all 4 forms. I'll just use one here. Ope. Ope's a good one. That one's easy. Ope, ep, op, and then you'll probably see ape. That's not a great eta, but hopefully you get it. So this last form is the qualitative. It's really hard to explain what the qualitative is because it doesn't exactly have an equivalent in English, but it is roughly equivalent to the passive participle. So for instance, ope means to count. Ape would be counted. So the things that I have counted, or the people who are counted, or whatever. Any construction you want to make with the passive participle is going to be roughly equivalent to the Coptic qualitative. If you studied earlier stages of Egyptian grammar, the qualitative is the final remnant of the stative. And we'll often say, at least...
Damn.
Was that a damn of surprise?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. I love a good like damn, and the qualitative definitely warrants it if anything in this subject does, because it's really cool when you see it, especially when you see the different forms, because they retain the third person stative endings. Usually in Saidic, it's the third person masculine stative endings, which really just looks like nothing, although it does change the previous vowel into an eta or whatever, normally a long vowel of some sort, depends on the verb paradigm. Or in Bohairic, you often get the third person feminine. So the qualitative always has a weird T on the end with like something strange happening to the vowels. And it's really neat when you see it. So here are some examples of verbs we know. Ape from ope, counted, me from mu, so full, Jake, completed, veil, like undone, shape, received. There we go. I should just look at the English. Kate, wait, sorry, I need to start up here. We is like, wo means to add or to put something in a place, and then we is like to be in the place, so to live or dwell. Mer, bound, tame, shut, and Wayne, opened, or just open, like the English adjective thing, like the store is open, that's Wayne. And then Kate, turned. I thought of Kate as the
Yeah.
stative of coat. Maybe it's the stative of cote too. Doesn't seem very frequent to me. Nage is like, literally it means thrown. So it's from nuje, meaning to like to cast. But nage is like to be in a place because it's been thrown there. You'll see lots of examples. It's really neat. It's also really intuitive once you get used to it, but it confuses everybody for a super long time. Especially, so there's a lot of details about it. There's one word that I want to point out because this one is especially confusing to everybody. Sho'op means basically to be, and it is the qualitative of the verb shope, that means to become. So if you have finished becoming something, you now are that thing. So sesho'op means they are. It's the closest thing Coptic has to a copula. No, it's not. The petena is really the closest thing it has to a copula, but it's the closest thing that Coptic has that is grammatically a copula, and you'll often see it in subordinate clauses where you really, really need a way of saying that something is something else. So sho'op. So next time you see that, try to remember this conversation and don't get thrown off by sho'op. It's just like is. Anyway, and then we have some vocab and we have some exercises, and that's where we'll stop for today because I ran way over time because I was talking about the new class, but that's okay. I wanted to talk about that. If there are any questions, we'll take a couple minutes for questions. No? Okay, go practice, and I will see y'all next week.
See you next week.
See you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next